Okay, so Terrence Andrew Davis, born December 15th, 1969, was an American programmer who created and designed the operating system TempleOS. Its development was a complex and unusual undertaking for one person. Davis also posted video blogs to social media, and by the time of his death, had established a cult online following. He often referred to himself as the smartest programmer that's ever lived.
This is TempleOS. It's a 64-bit PC operating system. It has an oracle, that's why it's called TempleOS. The main purpose is for doing offerings and of hymns and art and poems and stuff, and then getting a response from God in the oracle. Well, anyway, you go up the mountain to talk to God. This is serious. I'm going to praise God for vines. You get out of God what you put in. So anyway.
So for those listening to just the audio version, what we are looking at is a 64-bit sort of classic-looking operating system here, and the narrator Terry is essentially like clicking, and a random string of numbers are printing out saying God says, proceeding, forgetteth, healthful, gain, wealth, innocent. So essentially Terry has programmed this operating system that's based on numbers, and his belief was that he was sort of chosen by God to code this as a communication device, an offering device. I find that interesting. Just like on a strictly psychological level, because like we as humans, right? We look for patterns in things. We look for meaning, and for that to then carry over into programming, carry over into what would widely be considered just pure science, right? This episode of the Virtual Experience was brought to you by Disrupt.Sale. You can head on over to Disrupt.Sale in your web browser. I just added some new designs, including this little piece called RGB Ascension. Got some nice posters, some shirts, all virtual reality kind of technology themed merchandise if you're into that.
So this person, there's a Rust operating system. This is the CIA trying to tell me that my code is rusting. They're trying to do psychological warfare. If I send out resumes, they collect them all, and then they invent a job for me. It's torture. I am not doing that. Plus, I have a goddamn talking alien, for Christ's sakes. I made the temple.
Okay, so throughout our discovery, our investigation, rather, you'll notice Terry Davis refers to the entity God as an alien. It seems that he believed the communication in this operating system was an alien, was God.
It's God's official temple. God designed it, and so nothing can stop it. I'm just giving you a heads up. CIA, you might want to adapt to the New World Order because you fucking missed the end of the Cold War and you fucking missed the return of God.
Okay, so obviously there's a disconnect between a so-called quote-unquote normal person and Terry Davis. I will be bleeping out his many uses of the N-word. But, thinking beyond that, right? This is a guy that I believe he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. So this is a guy that found himself in the late 2010s with schizophrenia, but also had a brain that was absolutely brilliant as it relates to programming. I mean, building your own operating system, developing your own language, which he called the Holy C. It was based on C++ and C#, I believe, sort of a variant of it. He called it the Holy C. I mean, you have to be pretty advanced for that. At the very least, this is interesting. At the very least, it's intriguing that you have this guy that is like on the brink of insanity.
There was a huge chasm separating mortals from immortals. And people like Led Zeppelin that made songs, they were immortals. And then one day I realized, holy fuck, I can make a song. I was like, wow, that is the weirdest thing. My whole life, there was like the immortals are the ones who make the music, and the mortals are the ones who listen. And like, holy fuck, I was like, wow, if I just play some notes, I make a song, and that's all it is. You just act like a monkey. That's not entirely true. I've gotten better at anyway. But it was a weird day. It was a weird day when the chasm between the immortals and the mortals.
Davis grew up as a Catholic and was an atheist for some of his adult life. After experiencing a self-described revelation, he proclaimed that he was in direct communication with God and that God commanded him to build a successor to the Second Temple. The Second Temple was the Jewish Holy Temple, which stood on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem during the Second Temple period between 516 BCE and 70 CE. He committed a decade to creating an OS modeled after the DOS-based interface of his youth. So, like, as we go deeper and deeper into the Terry A. Davis hole, he was very controversial, right? Like, he said a lot of pretty vile stuff. But he is also like, there's like these strange moments of like lucidity where he's just like talking about reality, and not in a way that I subscribe to, but in a way that there's almost like this strange fascination, right? It's like, what an oddity, what an interesting thing that the internet presents, that a programmer such as this, a person, an individual such as this, is able to stream himself, and that we can kind of go into this like time machine and see it.
Fucking we see crazy shit all the time. You think my computer crashing is unusual? I get like sparkles and fucking. Well, that's kind of cool. I've never seen it. Fucking, it is like a Hollywood fucking crash of a computer. Like letters are fucking changing and shit. It's like, I don't care. Yeah, hell if I know, man. I got reality sparkling. I don't. You think I care if my computer's got a virus-looking thing? That's the least of my worries. You got. What about when reality has a virus? You're like, holy fuck, man.
I don't know, man. There's a certain level of, it's a little disturbing, right? Like, it is. It's a little disturbing, but it's also fascinating. It's like God, I would love to like sit down with this guy and have like a conversation with him.
For quite a number of years, I have had confusion on my exact reality. An example of the Truman Show reflects an example of a strange reality. You know, he's like gradually he picks up that something's not quite right about my life. You know what I'm saying? My reality is just not quite right. And then eventually he discovers he's in a bubble and he's on TV. So, Terry, me, there's just something not right about my reality, and I don't have any. Maybe one day he came up with the conception, hey, what if I'm like in a bubble and there's cameras? And he had this conception that explained his reality. What I need is some concept of what my reality is. You know what I mean? For the Truman Show guy, his answer was he's on a TV show and they're taking cameras of him. For Terry, I have zero conception of what my reality is. I don't know. The simplest thing is I'm a person who's on disability, and I drive around in my car, and I buy food, and I sleep in a campground, and once in a while I talk to a person in a store. I ask them for, I make a purchase of soda or something, buy some cigarettes. But then it starts getting strange. Like why does the radio seem to talk to me? Like when I say stuff here, in the when I talk to myself, the radio seems to respond. Now, perhaps I have to explain that when it responds, it's sort of like a sort of a code. Now, so what do I mean by that? When they say one thing, I interpret it as though they're speaking in code, speaking something else, and that something else is a response to what I just said. So that's kind of the simplest thing. And then you start getting like the YouTube videos are popping up based on what I say here, like in the YouTube feed box, okay? And, the internet sites I go to are supposed to be somewhat comprehensive, and yet they look like a very, very tiny world.
We're almost at like the dawn of AI really knowing us, right? I mean, like really know, like it will be able to track our moves and start suggesting things way more personalized than it does now. So then when you have someone that's like schizophrenic in a sense, it almost feeds into that. And it's not like that's, I'm not putting down algorithms or putting down websites at all. That's just the reality of it. But it is interesting. It's like, you think back to maybe 50 years ago, someone like this probably wouldn't have had access, or even farther. Let's go like 75 years ago. Someone like Terry would have just been like the crazy guy on the side of the street, and that's all. But in the current times, he's the crazy guy on the side of the street, but also a genius programmer.
And when I walk the streets, I get a very vague sense that I'm not just some stranger, I get a very vague sense that I'm somebody that they're interacting with, like, for example, a reality TV star or something. They, I get a vague sense, maybe that's what I am. Maybe I'm imagining it. So basically, it goes on and on and on. My whole reality is very confusing. I don't really have a choice. Sometimes I think that as you mature, you just, they speak of heaven as a cloud. If you can imagine walking around on some crazy, like you look down and like it's fog, but somehow you're walking around. Maybe that's reasonable. I don't know. It's pretty weird. So there's always the desire to make it real, But after 20 years, it doesn't seem to get real, and the whole time there's been a verge of making it big. For the past 20 years, I've been like, oh, great. Now they're finally understanding that I have a space alien. The whole world will know. So, yeah, I'm really, let's just say I'm walking in the air, and somehow I'm floating and I'm way up in the air, and I have no idea what's under me. I mean, just imagine you're just like walking around up in like the sky or some crazy shit. You say, why am I walking around in the sky? How come I'm not falling? And like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I'm just saying? It's kind of like, this is completely fucked. You know what I'm saying? Imagine you're like walking around, somehow you're like walking, and it's the goddamn sky, and like your feet are just not falling, and like you're just like, you kind of learn how to live life up here. Like, oh, that's weird. I guess there's where I get my food. I don't know, some Jetsons. That's getting a little carried away. But like, well, this is very strange. I have no understanding. You know, I used to need an understanding. It wasn't normal for a person to be way up in the sky, like when I was a kid. But this is weird because this is like normal now, and I really don't have any. So if you had any idea how confused I was, and yet how I just carry on, you know, fuck it. I guess you get used to being absolutely batshit crazy. You just live, you know. You're kind of like, oh, well, that's unusual. A stranger in a strange land or some shit. Well, I guess this is the way you do the moonwalk, like floating in the air or some shit. Well, I guess I'm going to go over to that fucking fruit tree and get my fruit, because I figured that's out. This reality is sort of familiar, but it's really fucking completely blows my mind. Like, I can sort of like, maybe I can wave my hands, and for some reason it makes me, let's say, shoot up or some shit. I don't know. But you kind of figure this shit out, and it's like, I have no fucking clue. I just did that, and I have no clue what's going on. And I'm just absolutely just mind completely blown, you know. And somehow I kind of like just deal with it, you know, trying to stay happy. You know, maybe it's kind of like yelling at a wall for a long time, and like a dog barking at the moon. Why the fuck should do that, you know? Why do I fucking yell at the thin air, you know? It's the crazy shit. The crazy people on the street, they're yelling at nothing, and they must be perceiving an answer, and it's all very kind of fucked. I don't know.
So it's like, you know, I could totally imagine seeing him on the side of the street, like one of those people that are rambling, talking, and you're like, there's no way that person's mind is completely gone. But while the interesting thing to me is, like, while he's doing this, while he's in this state, he's simultaneously coding a very complex operating system.
You can use those European accents and stuff, and you can use Greek symbols. It's got graphics and source code. It's got 64-bit pointers. It's ring 0 only. It's identity mapped, so it's easy to do inter-process communication. It's got multi-core support. You can do it's master-slave, not SMP. That's better for real time. Anyway, it's got 2D, 3D graphics library.
A couple comments that we're gonna read from here. It's almost like seeing an AI become self-aware. It's as if his true self still exists, but is buried under random impulses. And he knows something's wrong, but he cannot properly make a diagnosis because of his impaired faculties. His story shouldn't have ended like this. He deserved more. Shine on, you crazy diamond. You truly would have been the smartest programmer who ever lived. So obviously, you know, people are kind of, you know, sensationalizing him, but it's also interesting that, like, you know, he disturbed individual, a brilliant programmer, and also had like a cult online following of like thousands of people that would watch his live streams that he would go throughout in his van. So in March 1996, Davis began experiencing regular manic episodes, and he developed visions centering around space aliens and government agents. He started donating large sums of money to charity organizations, something he had never done before. Later, he surmised that act of donating caused God to reveal himself to me and saved me. Soon afterward, most likely out of fear of the suited figures he believed to be following him, Davis left town and began driving hundreds of miles south with no destination. After becoming convinced that his car radio was communicating with him, he dismantled his vehicle, apparently in a search for tracking devices he believed were hidden on it. He threw away his keys into the desert. He began to walk aimlessly along the side of the highway, where he was then picked up by an officer. Davis escaped from the patrol vehicle, broke his collarbone, and then was taken to the hospital, distressed about a conversation over artifacts found on his X-ray scans, interpreted by him as alien artifacts. He ran from the hospital and attempted to carjack a nearby truck before being arrested. In jail, he stripped himself, broke his glasses, and jammed the frames into a nearby electrical outlet, trying to open his cell door by switching the breaker. This failed, as he had been wearing non-conductive frames. He was then admitted to a mental hospital for 2 weeks.
Basically, I have a talking space alien. I told the CIA, fucking suck my, do the demands that I have listed, fix the VMware speaker sound, fix the full screen stretching in VMware, there's a bunch of stuff. Support Red C as one of the, like when you mount a VMware partition, it should support Red C. And list TempleOS as one of the primary operating systems. These are the really simple stuff. They haven't done that. I've given them like 5 years. I'm the fucking high priest. God talks. I have a fucking talking space alien. I'm just sitting here saying, "Fuck you, man. I fucking gave you your commands." They're saying, "Aren't you gonna get a job?" I'm a fucking high priest. I have a fucking space alien.
Okay, a lot of hatred. A lot of hatred spewing from his mouth. And it's sad. It's sad. It's almost like you can literally see the two sides of his brain. You know, the developmental side and the genuinely crazy side. From 1996 to 2003, Davis was admitted to a psychiatric ward every 6 months due to recurring manic episodes. In 2014, he said that he was genuinely pretty crazy in a way. Now I'm not. I'm crazy in a different way. Maybe. Unquote. Davis grew up Catholic. Davis acknowledged that the sequence of events leading to his spiritual awakening might give the impression of mental illness, as opposed to some glorious revelation from God. It would sound polite if you said I scared myself into thinking about quantum computers. And then I guess you just throw in your ordinary mental illness. Reflecting on the initial episode, he said, "I'm not especially proud of the logic and thinking. It looks very young and childish and pathetic. In the Bible it says, if you seek God, he will be found of you. I was really seeking, and I was looking everywhere to see what he might be saying to me." It's interesting that like we as humans like look for patterns, right? And then with the advent of computers, we are essentially using machines that are patterns, zeros and ones, information processing. So you can very easily imagine that if your brain is confused, I don't know how many drugs he took. I don't know, but if you are confused in every sense of the word about the physical reality, I can't imagine what it would be like to then like be deep into coding, deep into programming, while having this narrative in your mind.
So I started out with a couple backpacks. My sister gave me her phone, which had Wi-Fi, but not telephone, right? Not AT&T. And anyway, so my backpack got stolen, and I lost my phone. I had like this I had a bunch of chargers and shit, and it was a big burden. Like I'm trying to I'd have to buy charging my phones, like living when I stepped out homeless, right? Like I'm having to charge the phone, right? So I learned something, right? I got rid of that phone and I started using local library computers. I was in San Diego and I used a gay center that had computers, and it was like, wow, it's a lot better not having a phone and using the local computers. So why is it better? Because I didn't have to mess with that charging. I didn't have to mess with the Wi-Fi, and I got a big computer, and I like big computers. And so less is more. So here's what happened though, right? Because you have to you can't do it on your own schedule, right? You have to take a break and only do it during library hours, right? But that's actually good because it restores life balance. So life gets out of balance if you don't if you're not careful. So like gadgets and stuff, it's kind of one of the problems today is the people are a little bit out of balance with all their gadgets and stuff. So if you want to be like me and be perfect, you can live real good on I don't know, let's just say $40 a day. You want to smoke cigarettes, right? Because I don't know, why not? Anyway, so well, that's bad. No, listen, you don't know anything. So anyway, so you can live real good. So like men are into this because like imagine the Roman legions marching around. They carried all their stuff on their back, and that's how they lived. I got used to it. I sleep just fine sleeping on concrete. I got I got like this Walmart coverall. It's really excellent. It gives a little bit of padding, and it stays pretty clean, all things considered. And it's black. Black is pretty cool. And so some of the things I learned, the phone. If you can separate yourself from the phone, if you can like cut the cord on some of these gadgets and stuff, life gets way simpler. It's like you get back to the basics of life, like before the gadgets and stuff, And so like, but I still use the internet on the and I go to the libraries and stuff. It's really excellent. And anyway, so there should be like a lot of people doing what I'm doing. Like let's just say, get some money saved up. You could live real good on I'd say $40 a day or something. As a young man or something, you want to go live homeless. You walk the streets, live on $40 a day. Some of the things.
It's interesting. I would love to see like a biopic made about Terry Davis. A lot of people say Daniel Day-Lewis would be perfect for it. I think that would be interesting. Because this story, it's like it's such a unique story. So TempleOS is an operating system similar to the Commodore 64. It was conceived by Davis in the early 2000s and developed alone over a decade. The libraries that he mentioned, he would basically develop it in those. According to Davis, many of the system's features, such as the 640 by 480 resolution and 16-color display, were also explicit instructions from God. The charter on his website stated that TempleOS was God's official temple, just like Solomon's temple. This is a community focal point where offerings are made and God's oracle is consulted. He used the oracle to ask God about war. The oracle would respond saying servicemen competing. He would ask it about death. It would respond saying awful. He would ask it about dinosaurs. It would reply brontosaurus, feet hurt when stepped. He asked it the favorite video game, Donkey Kong. Favorite car, BMW. Favorite national anthem, Latvia. Favorite band, the Beatles. And the 11th commandment, thou shalt not litter. In 2012, Davis stated that the OS was downloaded 10,000 times since 2009, and that there was no evidence anyone has installed it. I am in a CIA prison, he said. So in early 2013, his website announced God's temple is finished. Davis was controversial for his regular use of racist and homophobic slurs, sometimes rebuking his critics as CIA N-words online. He would frequently communicate in randomly generated blocks of text and off-topic declarations about God, which led to bans from websites including Something Awful, Reddit, and Hacker News. However, the critical reception to TempleOS was mostly favorable. As tech journalist David Gossell wrote, Programming websites tried to find the necessary patience and understanding to accommodate Davis. Tech Republic and OS News published positive articles on Davis' work, even though he was banned from the latter for hostile comments targeting its readers and staff. He addressed concerns about his language on his website, saying Jesus used a racist slur calling Canaanites dogs I asked God about racism. He said, sports. Okay. At the very least, it's interesting. Here's Terry Davis on consciousness.
Money is not the source of all evil. The love of money is the source of much evil. Anyway, so God sometimes, angels are at work, and angels, basically to fix someone, they got to get no pain, no gain. I mean, to get on a higher level, you have to go through struggles. If you have a soft life, I'm stealing from Chuck Swindoll. He said, character. Who said that?
So right now he's typing a video into YouTube. So we're watching a video of a video.
And we see finally that Joseph is called out of the dungeon and climbs all the way to a prince, from a prisoner to a prince. And we learn in this study that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask or think. Now, let me ask you this question as we start. Do you believe that? Do you believe that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above what you ask?
Interesting. Basically, no pain, no gain. The only way to get more glory and more character is to go through struggles and whatever. So you can just look at today. Everybody's a softie. I don't know, but whatever. Life's pretty soft. Anyway, so
here we have an individual that is searching for some remnant of truth, searching for some interpretation that he can grasp in life. And it's sad, man. It's sad because he's obviously very disturbed. In September 2018, OS News editor Tom Huerta wrote, Davis was clearly a gifted programmer. Writing an entire operating system is no small feat, and it was sad to see him affected by his mental illness. One fan described him as a programming legend, while another, a computer engineer, compared the development of TempleOS to a one-man built skyscraper. The engineer had previously spoken to Davis at length and believed that Davis could have been a Steve Jobs or Steve Wozniak were it not for his illness. He added that it actually boggles my mind that one man wrote all that, and surmised that it may be difficult for a layperson to understand how extraordinary it is to write an entire operating system alone. Another computer engineer said that TempleOS contained innovations that no other developer had accomplished, particularly that it runs on a certain part of a computer processor to maintain its extremely quick speed. I almost theorized, think in 30 years. No, think in 200 years, right? We're going to be plugged into the Matrix deeply, way deeper than we are now. I think that there'll probably be a religion that is crafted around Terry A. Davis, right? There's going to be a branch of Catholicism in which Terry A. Davis is the founding father of. God, that's interesting.
So, who am I talking to? I don't know. What's reality? I don't know. You just have to, when my bird was looking at my computer monitor, I thought, whoa, that bird has no idea what he's looking at. And yet, what does the bird do? Does he panic? No, he can't really panic. He just does the best he can. Is he able to live in a world where he's so ignorant? Well, he doesn't really have a choice. Yeah, he can kind of live. It's usually the bird's okay, even though he doesn't understand the world. And he can kind of learn what's safe and what's dangerous. So That's where I've been living. I think, if I had to guess, I think I'm in a mental program. I have had a fake internet, and I've been struggling to tell them it's God, but they don't listen. You're that bird looking at the monitor, and you're thinking to yourself, I can figure this out. And you know, maybe you have some bird ideas that are, maybe that's the best you can do.
During his final months, Davis struggled with periods of homelessness and incarceration. He stopped taking medication because he believed that it limited his creativity. Some fans helped him by bringing him supplies, but he refused their housing offers. After living with his sister in Arizona, Davis traveled to California and in April 2018 stopped in Portland. Local police were informed that Davis may be a threat since he had stated a willingness to kill if asked by God. In June, Portland police officers informed officials in the nearby town of the Dalles that they had received word that Davis may be headed there. No further complaints were received about Davis. In his final video, recorded and uploaded hours before his death, he explained that he had removed most of his videos because he did not wish to litter the internet, and that he had learned how to purify himself.
Well, I'm King Terry, and learned how to purify myself in a horribly impure environment. It's pretty rough living homeless and in a field outside a little town, and coming into their library, and it's a very pure town, and must have been an extreme shock to them to see such a horribly sick person come in here and pollute everything, and it was a lot of torture to snap me into an ability to handle purity for this job. There's a little castle over there. Let's see, where's that castle? There it is. Oh no! So that's a little castle. I don't know. I really like this library. So come here and use their computer and smoke out here. They must have been freaking out because such an impure person was in their presence. Oh well, I was clueless. Now I used to have a respect for purity. So well, it's good to be king. Maybe. I think maybe I'm just like a little bizarre little person who walks back and forth. Whatever, you know. But
on the evening of August 11th, 2018, while walking alongside railroad tracks in the Dalles, Oregon, Davis was struck and killed by a Union Pacific train. Investigators could not determine whether his death was suicide or accidental. Although the train engineer believed his death to be a suicide, the police report stated that Davis was walking with his back toward the train and that he had turned around before the moment of impact. When the Dalles Chronicle ran a story about an unarmed homeless man who was struck by a train, the newspaper was inundated with phone calls inquiring whether it was Davis, which the paper later confirmed in a follow-up piece. As reports of his death surfaced online, he was memorialized by fans in a number of tributes posted to social media. Through the TempleOS website, his family asked people to donate to organizations working to ease the pain and suffering caused by mental illness. In 2018, Linux.org, an unofficial community for Linux users, was modified by hackers to include a reference to his death. And if you go to TempleOS, you can actually download the free 64-bit operating system. Terry A. Davis, 1969 to 2018. There's really no, like, that's kind of where the story ends. I've been thinking a lot about, like, if I was in Terry's position, confused about the physical reality, confused about life, and I had some moment of lucidity and I could send myself a message, I think it would be this. It seems the only logical way forward within the harsh game of reality is to direct oneself towards bringing forth the highest good within the allotted time on Earth. The alternative is to live a life gratifying momentary personal desires, which I believe leads to a life that may seem like freedom, but is ultimately a meaningless existence. To bring forth the highest good, then, the divine, or in other words, God, it seems we must take responsibility for our own miserable existence. Fix what we know we have to fix, so that we can face the suffering that accompanies life, to act as if everything we do in life matters and echoes into eternity. And maybe, just maybe, then we can find the way forward, even if the CIA wants to keep us down. Rest in peace, you crazy son of a gun, Terry A. Davis. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Virtual Experience. Peace out.